Uh, okay, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Uh, this is another session to complete what we have already started on the course International Peace and Security, in which we have uploaded a previous video, but it was only less than 10 minutes, so I didn't complete what I wanted to convey to you through this one. So this is a resumption of that. In the previous session on the conceptual framework, we have done some sorting out or distinction between these two closely related and interlinked concepts: peace on the one hand and security on the other. And I have already said that peace is a situation that follows the occurrence of conflict or violence, whereas security is a sustained human need that is not necessarily associated with an outbreak of violence or instability. Everybody needs to be secure in his home, in his university, in his workplace, at all times and in all occasions. But we will, as we go further, we will analyze in some depth the definitions of these two terms. About international peace, we are now exploring the concept of international peace. Traditionally speaking, theoreticians on peace and conflict studies use to say that peace is the absence of war or the absence of violence. And I would say this is not a good definition, because you are describing something by saying that this thing is not is not so and so and so and so, without completing the meaning by stating what does that thing stand for. If it is not, or if it is the absence of war, then what is it about? There has to be something that peace is about, apart from being the absence of war. Nonetheless, the concept of peace itself has been progressively undergoing developments and transformations in relation to the demarcation between the pre-Cold War era and the post-Cold War era. Because I have been saying times and times that the end of the Cold War has had profound repercussions and impacts on the conduct of the, or it has influenced the international politics, having influence on the economy, of the international economy, having impact on the international security, having impact on even social and cultural relations, with in fact the growing phenomena of globalization. In our search for a definition, or for the development and the evolution of the concept, one very important landmark that we have to cast light on is the establishment of the UN, the United Nations Organization, as the current international organization mandated to see to it that international peace and security is preserved. So this is the main organization that is meant to be the tool to ensure the preservance or the maintenance of international peace and security. So, in analyzing the concept of international peace and international security, we have to have a look at the UN itself. What was the rationale behind the establishment of the United Nations as an international organization? In fact, in a nutshell, we would say the rationale behind the establishment of the UN as an international organization was the failure of the League of Nations. It was the organization that preceded the establishment of the UN. Now that league, the failure of that league to prevent the occurrence of World War II to happen and to cost the world the atrocities and the loss of lives and the destruction that was or that followed the outbreak of World War II. So the rationale is the failure of that organization to prevent the atrocities of that volume. Therefore, or in consequence, the prime concern of the newly established organization, the UN, was twofold. First, the preservation of international peace and security. Second is to avoid humanity the occurrence of war and violence as has happened in World War II. These are the two main objectives, let me say, or aims or rationale behind the establishment of the UN. Now we say this in our search for the evolution and the development of the term international peace. The UN itself, the Charter of the UN, does not provide any concrete definition for international peace or the breach of international peace. If you review the Charter, you will not find any coherent definition for the term international peace. The UN Charter is in fact concerned with the modalities, with the tools, with the agencies that are mandated for doing the different activities and different tasks of the UN. But you will hardly find any concrete definition for international peace and security for which the UN is in fact established. However, reviewing the UN documents, one could sense that preservation or maintenance of international peace and security do include other components, non-military components like economic, social, and environmental stability. These are components that are in fact implicitly included in what we could sense as a definition of, of international peace, then we can say that in the era following the establishment of the unit itself, the concept of international peace has underwent some transformation. New elements were added to the traditional concept of peace, apart from stability, apart from tranquility, apart from cessation of cessation of hostilities. Now these other components are to be added to the components of peace. So this is another evolution, another development in the concept of peace. And in fact, in as well, we can equally say that the concept of peace includes implicitly the existence of social justice between the different parties to the conflict, of which peace is a resolution for that conflict. I have been saying that when we are talking about peace, peace and conflict are two faces of the same coin. Two faces of the same coin. When we're talking about peace, we are in fact talking about the other face of the term conflict itself. In this context, this new context, after the establishment of the UN, peace is not necessarily related to war. It is not related to war or violence whatsoever, but its realization of peace requires a set of conditions associated with matters related to the other components which I have just mentioned, including healthy, quiet, and normal lifestyle of human beings and citizens. In fact, when we are talking about healthy, quiet, and normal lifestyle of human beings, we are in fact meaning that that peace in fact implies the ability of ordinary citizens, the abilities of these people to perform their normal lifestyle, freeing them from fear, freeing them from want, freeing them from whatsoever. Now, this could be another analysis of the concept of peace and how the concept itself developed in the post and the pre eras, including the Cold War and in fact including the establishment of the UN in the 1940s, in the mid-40s. Now, as we are making this conceptual framework for these two terms, let us now go back to concept of security, international security. When you hear security, what comes to your mind is the military and the police forces guarding us or protecting us from from fears or from dangers coming from outside our milieu, our milieu, or our environment. Traditionally speaking, security has been understood in terms of national security, including common and collective security. In fact, by saying national security, we are referring to state security. State security, as implies that the government who is monopolizing the use of force, in fact, is imposing order and implementing the law to protect the government itself. And by protecting the government, the implication is that citizens are necessarily protected as a result of the protection of the government. This is the traditional theory of national security, that the security of the state is in fact the security of the people and security of the citizens. We will see in a moment how does that even has also been transformed into the new form of human security. However, in post-Cold War era, other non-military components were added as additional aspects of security, namely political, economic, social and environmental aspects. This is again a new development that has been understood as a result of the new concepts that were introduced in the post-Cold War era. Just as the term peace also has been transformed even along these lines. On the other hand, there is a growing recognition that as globalization is characterizing or prevailing in the world scene in the context of the proliferation of internal wars and failed states, individuals and communities could also be objects or targets of security, giving rise to the new concept of human security as parallel to the traditional national or state security. This is again a new concept that is emerging or in progress, that the security of a state does not necessarily imply the security of the citizens. The new concept that is being loaded in the concept of human security is to the effect that security should be geared to serve the citizens rather than serving the state. And because of the influence of or the impact of the globalization itself, and because of the very many transformations that happen to the concept of sovereignty of the states, and how this concept of sovereignty as a classical corollary and as a classical prerequisites of the traditional Westphalian state, the nation state that is being uh, established according to Westphalia, Westphalia agreement in Germany 2 centuries back. The development that happened to concept of sovereignty, in fact, has a lot to do with the development of the concept of uh, of of human security as distinct from the old concept of national security. National security. So, this is again the very important development that happened to the term international security. These are the analyses and the developments that were now in use: international peace and international security. And you can also have your own readings to further analyze these two terms, to see how these two terms and these two interrelated terms has underwent these evolutions and developments. It is in fact in place that when talking about international peace, we are not talking only about conflicting parties coming to an agreement or coming to a reconciliation. We are talking about positive positive characters enabling ordinary citizens to carry out their daily and habitual activities in a normal way. In fact, adding to that, the preservation of the fact that social justice prevails between different social sectors and social milieux. And in fact, when we are talking about international security, we are not talking about the security of the states. We are talking about the about different components that are to be assured to be there in international security. We are talking about the environment. We are talking about the climate change. We are in fact talking about international migration. We are talking in fact about organized and transboundary crimes. We are talking about good livelihood systems of different societies. We are talking about food security for different societies and different nations worldwide. And as you can see from these definitions, international peace and international security, in the context of the globalization, we are moving towards fulfilling the needs of societies. We are getting closer to the grassroots. In fact, compromising one way or another the classical concepts of sovereignty of the states, which were introduced in the post-Westphalia agreement centuries back. This is, I think, for this session. We will be, inshallah, having other sessions in this course if time is allowed for us in this semester. Thanks a lot. شكرا.